Hey friends, welcome to my studio. I'm Wendell Myers and I'm going to do a little bit of painting so that you can see some of my process, how I approach parts of these small paintings on paper just for fun, just so you can see that. I have not done this before, so I'm going to just give it a try and see what happens, see what we get, okay? Okay, so what I'm going to try to do here is I need some lighter values in here. It's all, the trees and the ground are all pretty much the same value. The only thing that's a different value is the sky. What I have here to use, a splatter brush, a couple of different toothbrushes, just a nice round brush. I have, the colors I have out here are Pyrrole Orange, Quinacridone Red, Quinacridone Magenta, Titanium White, Indian Yellow, Alizarin Crimson, a blue. I think the main blue in there is Ultramarine Blue with Titanium White. I like these yogurt cups. They're great. I have a whole bunch of them. I like natural sponge. I also need some palette knives. Reaching over here to get a couple of palette knives. With these smaller paintings on paper, I like to just tape them down on cardboard that's covered with plastic, and then I can just use that as my palette, and it makes a lot of things easier. Another thing I'm going to use probably is tongue depressors. These are inexpensive. They are good for about 1,000 different things. You can buy them in boxes of 500. You can mix paint, get paint out of jars, apply paint. There's all kinds of things you can do with these. They're extremely useful. A box of 500 will last you a long time because you can reuse them. Sometimes I like to cut off one end and make it nice and square. Helps to get paint out of the bottom of jars. Okay, so let's see, what are we going to do here? I think I'm going to start with Quinacridone Magenta. I do tend to work with one color at a time, not always, but I know a lot of people would probably say that's not the way to do it. Put out the colors you're going to use, but I just seem to have kind of naturally fallen into that pattern, and it works for me. Put out one color at a time and use that color. Just kind of the way I'm comfortable working. Just one more illustration of the idea that there really isn't one way to do this. You have to do what works for you. So anytime somebody says you must or you mustn't or always or never, I think they're not telling you the truth. I don't think there is a must or mustn't. Never use white. Never use white. Never use black. Never use water. Those are just examples of nevers that are ridiculous. Anybody who tells you never do this, never do that, always do this, always do that, they're either not telling the truth or they just don't know. Let's see what we get with this. I need more water here. Yeah, it's not thin enough because I'd like to do a lot of splattering. Oh, there we go. There we get it a little bit. And dripping. I like to do things that I can influence but not control. And splattering is an example of that. A lot of times the best results are the ones you don't have complete control over. Contrary to what a lot of critics of modern art think, it's not just random. There are a lot of decisions involved in how you're going to influence these things, what kind of physical motions you're going to use, where you're going to put your emphasis. It's not just completely random and out of control. It's partly out of control. And you have a lot of influence, even if you don't really have total control. And in addition to what I was saying about the lack of contrast in the values here, I also feel like the trunks of these trees are too obvious and too literal. I don't want them to be that obvious or literal. And I'm going to come back in later and sharpen the background up. But I do want to unsharpen to a degree the tree trunks. Like I said, they're just too obvious and too literal. So we'll have to see. I'll have to see what I can do with that. I like that. You can see I want more red in here too. I like what that's doing to that yellow, but it's not going to stay like that. I'm probably going to come back in here again with yellow and redefine that. You have to look at art with an open mind. You know, you have to be willing to give it a minute. And a lot of people, I think a lot of critics of modern art don't do that. They have a preconceived notion that one of the jobs of art is to depict, and I don't think that's one of the jobs of art at all. That is, depiction is the job of journalism. And if you're talking about visual depiction, you're talking about photographic journalism or journalistic photography. And that's not the realm of fine art. It can be, but that's a choice. Okay, let's see. I don't really like some of what's happening here. I can see I need more red. Let's just put some red in this and see what happens with that. Try some naphthol red medium. Yeah, let's try that in there. You know, it's hard to increase the value without having an effect on the hue. It'd be really nice to be able to increase the value of red without making it pink. And I realize that doesn't really change the hue, but it changes the emotional sense of the hue from a strong statement to potentially a weak, wimpy kind of. Now that I don't like that. That looks like fish sauce from my childhood. That was a mixture of ketchup and mayonnaise, which is very tasty on fried fish, by the way. Yeah, I don't like where this is going. Well, I think I'm going to turn the video off at this point. I mean, I have managed to show you a little bit of how I work on this, and very frequently, what seems to be happening right now is what happens. You take something that you think is approaching completion, but has some problems, and in trying to work on those problems, you take it much farther from completion. And sometimes those things turn out really to be surprisingly a step in the right direction, even though maybe at the time they don't look like it. I'm not at all sure that that's the case here. But, I'll keep working on these and we'll see. And I will show you these again at some point in the future. when hopefully they'll be a little closer to completion than they are right now. Okay, so let's stop there. Obviously, I'm going to keep working on these, but I thought that might be interesting to you. So that's how I approach these. It's how I work on them. I don't think any of these are done right now, but they're getting there. So they'll take a little more work, and then we'll see. Thank you very much for dropping by. We'll see you next time.